sheriff. So my alter ego would be shirtless sheriff in
Yes.
an effort to pursue some kind of constant vulnerability in the world.
Hilarious. Pleasure to meet you, Shirtless Sheriff.
You too.
Or Sanam.
I can go next if that's okay. My name is Victoria, and she, her, or they, them, either one is fine. And I think as far as alter egos, I always think of my grandmother's maiden name, which is Beshara, and that's like my Lebanese side of the family. And I think the purpose of that would be to make sure that like she and like that side of my family and like my heritage is not forgotten or erased. So.
Lebanese. Very cool. Beshara, is that how you say that?
Yes, yeah.
Very cool. Pleasure to meet you, Victoria.
You as well, thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, I guess I'll go next. My name is Noor. I'm calling you from Cairo, Egypt. It's currently like almost 2 a.m.
From where?
I'm powering through.
Sorry, from where?
Cairo, Egypt.
Cairo. Bless you. All right.
She, her, they, them. I don't mind pronouns. Alter ego. It took me a while to like be comfortable in my own name. So I like my name, but if I had to have an alter ego, it would be Lady, because Camel is my surname, and it means perfection in Arabic, but it also means, you know, the animal that symbolizes the country that I'm from. So
that's awesome.
I like that. Yeah.
I've always loved the name Noor. I think it's just a very beautiful name. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you. We've actually met before.
Yeah, you sounded
nice
so familiar. I'm so sorry. I'm just being in teacher mode. But
You're
it's
fine.
Nice to see you.
No. You're fine.
Wait, where did we meet again?
In Oxford, Mississippi.
Girl, we had sat on the porch and had so many beers. I knew you looked familiar. Yes, Noor. Yes. I was like, I don't want to be like, I know this person. And it's also like a little blotchy on the thing. But I definitely know you. We definitely had like 8 Budweisers. You're great.
We did.
Pleasure to meet you again. See you again.
So are you.
LOL.
It's lovely to see you too.
Oh, Caitlin. I gotta tell Caitlin. That's so sweet.
Oh my. Yeah, Caitlin. Oh God, that house and that dog.
That house and that dog and that, we could talk about it later. That's not important right now.
Yeah.
But it is
Sounds
important
good.
in life. Yes.
It
Well,
is.
it's good to see you, Nora. Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure seeing you too. Yeah.
Next.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Ami, and pronouns are she, her. I also really like my name, and yeah, works for me too. I am physically in Portland, but psychically I find myself in lots of different places and just wandering and zoning out. I mean, in terms of alter ego, I don't really know. I've never thought about that. It might be something to think about. I think a lot about the apocalypse and how I would be. I don't know if any of you have seen the recent Mad Max movie. There's an old woman who just has a satchel of seeds that she just holds on to for dear life. So that's kind of my obsession. So it'd probably be something around seeds or, you know, just thinking about making sure that we're able to grow and bloom beyond really intense times. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, do you read Octavia Butler?
Yes, I have.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Great. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Is that everyone? It's everyone. Great. Cool. Okay, so my name is Aziza Barnes. I had said that I'm coming to you live from Silver Lake, Los Angeles, California. I'm in my friend Daniel Lisi's house. He's a very nice person. And my alter ego is Zora Neale Hurston. And it was created for me by my good friend and podcaster, Jose Olivares. And what that does for me is makes me feel like a bad bitch. And that's all I really need, because I forget often that might be true. See, might just is. So I need that in my life. Also, I feel like Zora Neale Hurston is the genesis of Zora Neale Hurston, in that Zora Neale Hurston got rich. And, you know, no one talks about this, but Zora Neale Hurston died like penniless and real sad. So that's not okay. Cool. So we're going to get into the first poem that I had, well, not the first, but one of the poems that I had asked y'all to read. If you could each pull up Tulips by Sylvia Plath, that would be very helpful. Now, normally I would ask one of y'all to read it, but because we're on such like a sketchy Google Hangout-y sound thing, I'm just going to read these poems. But you should read them aloud to yourself later today. I would recommend, just when it's like fresh in your mind. So I'm going to read to y'all these two poems back to back, and then we're going to have a 20-minute discussion about them and how they pertain to the subject of today, which is, how do we write authentically, clearly, and with vigor the little factories in our head? We cool? Shake your head, yeah, if we're cool. Does that make sense? I can't tell if you're shaking. You're shaking. I'm shaking. Sit. Okay. Aha. Cool. Thumbs up is easier because everyone looks like they're shaking a little. All right. Cool. Tulips by Sylvia Plath. And so wait, 1 second. We all know the narrative of Sylvia Plath. Can we get a thumbs up? We know she killed herself by putting the head in the oven. Okay, great. That's not all of her, but that pertains to this. Tulips by Sylvia Plath. The tulips are too excitable. It is winter here. Look how white everything is, how quiet, how snowed in. I am learning peacefulness, lying by myself quietly as the light lies on these white walls, this bed, these hands. I am nobody. I have nothing to do with explosions. I have given my name and my day clothes up to the nurses, and my history to the anesthetists, and my body to surgeons. They have propped my head between the pillow and the sheet cuff, like an eye between two white lids that will not shut, stupid pupil. It has to take everything in. The nurses pass and pass, they are no trouble. They pass the way gulls pass inland in their white caps, doing things with their hands, one just the same as another, so it is impossible to tell how many there are. My body is a pebble to them. They tend it as water tends to the pebbles it must run over, smoothing them gently. They bring me numbness and their bright needles. They bring me sleep. Now I have lost myself. I am sick of baggage. My patent leather overnight case like a black pill box. My husband and child smiling out of the family photo. Their smiles catch onto my skin, little smiling hooks. I have let things slip. A 30-year-old cargo boat stubbornly hanging on to my name and address. They have swabbed me clear of my loving associations. Sacred and bare on the green plastic pillow trolley, I watched my tea set, my bureaus of linen, my books, sink out of sight, and the water went over my head. I am a nun now. I have never been so pure. I didn't want any flowers. I only wanted to lie with my hands turned up and be utterly empty. How free it is. You have no idea how free. The peacefulness is so big it dazes you, and it asks nothing. A name tag, a few trinkets. It is what the dead close on finally. I imagine them, shutting their mouths on it like a communion tablet. The tulips are too red in the first place. They hurt me. Even through the gift paper, I could hear them breathe lightly through their white swaddlings like an awful baby. Their redness talks to my wound. It corresponds. They are subtle. They seem to float, though they weigh me down, upsetting me with their sudden tongues and their color. A dozen red lead skinners around my neck. Nobody watched me before, now I am watched. The tulips turn to me in the window behind me, where once a day the light slowly widens and slowly thins, and I see myself flat, ridiculous. A cut paper shadow between the eye of the sun and the eyes of the tulips, and I have no face. I have wanted to efface myself. The tulips eat my oxygen. Before they came, the air was calm enough, coming and going, breath by breath, without any fuss. Then the tulips filled it like a loud noise. Now the air snags and eddies around them the way a river snags and eddies around a sunken rust-red engine. They concentrate my attention. That was happy playing and resting without committing itself. The walls also seem to be warming themselves. The tulips should be behind bars like dangerous animals. They are opening like the mouth of some great African cat, and I am aware of my heart. It opens and closes, its bowl of red blooms out of sheer love of me. The water I taste is warm and salt like the sea, and comes from a country far away as hell. So that's the first one. Second one, and then we talk. Feet by Ross Gay. Also, it's obvious, but when you're listening to these, actively listen. Take notes, wherever you want, on whatever you want. Friends, mine are ugly feet, the body's common wreckage stuffed into boots. The second toe on the left foot's crooked enough that when a child asks what's that of it, I can, without flinch or fear of doubt, lie that a cow stepped on it, which maybe makes them fear cows, for which I repent, in love as I am with those philosophical beasts who would never smash my feet, nor sneer at them the way my mother does. We always bought you good shoes, honey, she says. You can't blame us for those things. And for this and other reasons, I have never indulged in the pleasure of flip-flops, shy or ashamed, digging my toes like 10 tiny ostriches into the sand at the beach with friends who I'm not sure love me. Though I don't think Tina loved me, she liked me, I think, but said to me as we sat on lawn chairs beside a pool where I lifeguarded and was meticulous at obscuring from view with a book or a towel my schooly friends, "You have pretty feet," in that gaudy cement mixer Levittown accent that sends all the lemurs scaling my ribcage to sea. And she actually had pretty feet. And so I took this as a kindness incomparable and probably fell a little bit in love with her for that afternoon, with the weird white streak in her hair and her machine gun chatter and probably her gums snapping, and so slid my feet from beneath my Power Man and Iron Fist comic book into the sun, for which they acted like plants, opening their tiny mouths to the food hurtling to them through the solar system. And like plants, you could watch them almost smile, almost say thank you. You could watch them turn colors and be almost emboldened, as much as some snaggletooth feet can be emboldened. And Tina witnessed none of this, because she was probably digging in her purse, or talking about that hottie on the Real World, or yelling at some friend's little sister to put her ass in her trunks, or pouring the crumbs of her Fritos into her thrown open mouth. But do you really think I'm talking to you about my feet? Of course she's dead. Tina was her name. Of leukemia, so I heard. Why else would I try sadly to make music of her unremarkable kindness? I'm trying, I think, to forgive myself for something I don't know what. But what I do know is that I love the moment when the poet says, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. Sometimes it's a horseshit trick, but sometimes it's a way by which the poet says, I wish I could tell you truly of the little factory in my head, the smokestacks chuffing, the dandelions and purslane and willows of sweet clover prying through the blacktop. I wish I could tell you how inside is the steady mumble and clank of machines, but mostly I wish I could tell you of the footsteps I hear, more than I can ever count, all of whose gates I can discern by listening closely, which promptly disappear after being lodged again here where we started, in the factory, where loss makes all things beautiful grow. Right? Shake it off. Just do a small shake dance. It's heavy. So, right? It's good to make sounds. It's just good to make sounds. Right. Well, between these two, on the topic of the little factory in our head, I have a kickoff question, which is like very dumb, simple. But how does Sylvia Plath respond to a gift of tulips while she is stationed in a mental hospital? So that's where she is. If we didn't glean that, she's in a mental hospital, and presumably her family brought her tulips, red tulips. Now, from there we can jump off in any direction, but I think it's always good to just have like a very low stakes jump off question. Just how do you feel she reacted to that? Anyone can jump in, but please no more than one person's mic on at the same time. So figure that out amongst yourself. So the question again, I'm sorry, is how does Sylvia Plath respond to a gift of red tulips after being in a mental hospital?
I read it as she's threatened by them, and the image that keeps sticking to my head is a line about them being behind bars. So I'm feeling like this fear and this threat and this like animalization, like wildness, and like feral thing that is like, it's making me see her do this in her bed.
That's interesting. So yeah, threatened. Threatened by what part of them? Like you mentioned animalization, but like what animal aspect? If you could pin it to a sight, a sound, a sensation that she describes. Right, so I love Sanam's point of that Sylvia Plath is threatened by the tulips. But I want to push on, and I think it's excellent, and I want to push on like what aspect? Yeah, Sanam?
So the mouth opening, like
yeah.
I'm trying to switch between us. Yeah, but where is the line? Sorry. Yeah, they're opening like the mouth of some great African cat.
Yes. Yes.
That.
Yeah, and I think with that image, right? You know, it and she says, I'm reminded of my heart, right? Which implies that like while being in the hospital or while being this depressed, she was able to forget until someone delivered her a gift such as this. What else do we think? How did she respond, react, address this gift of tulips?
In some of the notes that I was taking, I kind of felt that, kind of piggybacking off of what you said, that they, that it was their connection to the outside and to normalcy that made them threatening, or a reminder that she's missing out on something, that there's stuff out there that she can't have here. Kind of their transactional value relative to like the cost of her experience where she is.
So it's a threat, it's a reminder, they have a transactional quality, yeah?
It's like not worth it. It's such like it's not enough for what she deserves.
What's not enough? What's not worth it?
The tulips that someone
tulips.
When she said there are a dozen red lead sinkers around her neck, like that they feel that they don't make her feel better, right? And that isn't that the point of them, that they're supposed to do something, have some magic.
Sure.
Why do you give people flowers?
And why do you?
Yeah.
You know, I do wonder the impulse of the gift. Like, is the impulse of the gift, I would imagine it's not to threaten Sylvia, right? Like, you know, like, anger flower! Like, I have a feeling that's not what the intention was. But I do wonder if the intention from her husband, who's a poet who I can't remember the name of. I know that's right. Yes, fan. Yes, fan.
I
love it. I feel you, and I love the gesture also. But what was the husband's name? Tom Yates? Was that his name? I forget. Whatever. Anyway, I wonder if his intention was like, dude, come home, like, or comfort, but it gets, you know, trapped in this sieve. What else? Excellent, Zach. What else?
Well, I actually
just jump in as you can.
Off of what
whoever
Zach
unmutes
was.
First.
Yeah, so there's an interesting line where she talks about the redness talks to my wound, it corresponds. And so I think that's interesting because it's almost like her having to reckon with some of the deepness of her depression or being in this mental hospital. And maybe it's too raw, and the tulips are kind of reflecting that somehow. So I think it kind of goes off of what Simone and Zach said. So that was interesting.
So we have a threat, a reminder. There's something transactional about it for her experience. Like, these tulips are not enough for what I've been through. I would also say that, like, the tulips are the trade-off of, like, being in the world, you know? It's like, you could be in the world or you could get tulips. Like, you don't get a middle ground, you know, which is very I think that's a really rough thing. And then now we have, how would you put what you just said, Ami, in a synopsis? Like, what is the action of the tulips? How does she respond? You said a word that I thought was very relevant, and then I went off on that thing about the transaction. But
maybe like a reckoning, an emotional.
A reckoning. There it is. It's like she has to now contend with herself. So we have threat, reminder, reckoning, and that it's transactionally insufficient. There's an insufficiency. Right. Awesome. How does this poem expose the way Sylvia thinks? Right. So the event is this, right? She's in the mental hospital for presumably depression, but we're not sure. And we don't know how long she's been there. We do know some part of her is happy to be there. I was never looked at, now I'm looked at, right? She's seen. But how does Tulips expose how Sylvia Plath thinks about this event? Does that question make sense? Okay. And you can cite what parts in the poem. So I'll start, because why not? I think for me, the biggest moment that I realized, oh, this bitch is crazy, is actually the first line. Nah, yes, of course, the first line, but then this section, you can jump to it. I didn't want any flowers. I only wanted to lie with my hands turned up and be utterly empty. How free it is, you have no idea how free. The peacefulness is so big, it dazes you, and it asks nothing. A name tag, a few trinkets. It is what the dead close on finally. I imagine them shutting their mouths on it like a communion tablet, right? So she gets the flowers. She arrives at the thought, I don't want this. And then she has to leap. I imagine it like these jungle gyms. Like, I don't want any flowers. I wanted to just sit like this, which is a strange position because this looks like begging as much as it looks like giving up, right? Please help me as much as it looks like I have nothing. But that's what she wanted, to have nothing, presumably. How free it is, you have no idea how free. But it's not freedom because you're still writing about it. So she sees the contradiction. The peacefulness is so big, it dazes you. And there's the result of her contradiction. I can't take this much peace, or what I perceive as peace, which I know on some fundamental level is not peace. It is what the dead finally close on after this transaction of not that many things. My name, a few trinkets. But your name is everything. Even when you die, you take your name with you. It's on a tombstone. People keep saying it. It's on your Facebook wall now, you know? It is what the dead close on, which they don't. But then she imagined what the dead close on. It is what the dead close on. Finally, I imagine them shutting their mouths on it like a communion tablet. So then I'm able to see a line of skeletons taking communion. And this bitch is nuts. Like, what a loon, like, amazing fucking mind that is, to see some flowers and go like, I don't want that. What do I want? Oh, I want this, but that doesn't make sense. Oh, then it feels like this, and that doesn't make sense. I think this is what these people have, but that doesn't really make sense. But let's just keep making no sense. Oh, they're all in church. So what section of this poem really jumps out at you? Which such a trite phrase, jumps out at. It's a poem, nothing jumps. But really reveals to you the mind of Sylvia Plath in this experience, in this Tulips experience.
I think for me, at least, I see the lines. Before they came, the air was calm enough, coming and going, breath by breath, without any fuss. Then the tulips filled it up like a loud noise, and it makes me think about this gesture as like a huge wrench thrown in, like the direction she was going or that piece that she was wanting to experience. And it makes me think about like the small things and how they interact with her life and she interacts with them. So like small things make a big difference, is what it seems like.
Yeah, of course. I love the notion of the small things like have the potential to completely derail her. And that is what she's saying. But she's not saying these small things are derailing me. She's saying now the tulips are breathing my air. You know what I mean? Like, she is a woman, and I don't know her, I never will know her, but she seems to me to be a woman who gave herself permission to see what was in her head and say it. To see it and say it, not think it and say it, but see it and be like, oh yeah, these tulips totally breathing all my air. Which we can then infer as the little things are starting to accumulate and hurt me, right? Very cool. Thank you, Victoria. Who else? What other section are like,
The section right before that, like that stanza that you just were talking about. Nobody watched me before, now I am watched until like the vivid tulips eat my oxygen. Like that just, I don't know, the personification of the like tulips and her hate and anger towards them is so immense. And like a symbol of hope that she just rejects, that she just doesn't want. And like it's almost like she's fighting, she resents them because they're so full of life, and now she has to like almost fight against them because she's like, you're taking up all of my life. And I like didn't want to fight. Now you're the symbol of life, and I have to like cling to life as well, almost to compete with these flowers I didn't want to be here in the first place.
Wow. Resentment and competition. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I initially asked, like, what are her responses? Because then this is how she evokes the response. Like, once you see, it's like, nobody watched me before, now I'm watched. The tulips turn to me. And the window behind me, where once a day the light slowly widens and slowly thins, and I see myself flat, ridiculous, a cut paper shadow between the eye of the sun and the eyes of the tulips, and I have no face. I have wanted to efface myself. The vivid tulips eat my oxygen. Right? Which is incredible, because you're right, Noor, it is competition. And it's like they're winning. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way she can beat that. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like when you see Beyonce perform, and then you would have to go on next. And you're just like, well, I'm not going. I'm not going to do that to myself. Why would I do that? And so she saw the Beyonce tulips and was like, fuck it, I'm dead. That's amazing. Yeah. Wonderful. So moving now, I'm going to move from this poem. Is that all right with y'all? Thumbs up if that's all right with y'all. Anyone want to say another thing about tulips? Okay, cool. So, Into Feet by Ross Gay. What is this man talking about? Low stakes question. What on earth is Ross Gay talking about? It's true. No one ever really knows, but we have to try.
Well, he does say, or they do say that they're like trying to portray like what the kindness felt like. I mean, not really the like how this like really small thing soothed like a very like big thing, but it was actually weird because the big thing was in reality a really small thing, and it's like, okay, I don't know, it just, everything seemed kind of like minuscule, but I guess like it meant a lot because it was soothing something that was only big in their head, and like, you know, I don't know, that's kind of spotty, but
it's not spotty. I like the word minuscule because I think the relevance between Plath and Gay is the seemingly minuscule actually exposes them completely, right? So for him, it was the gesture of, you have pretty feet, which he had never heard before in his life, right? And I believe he does go by he, him. I believe that's true. If I'm wrong, then fuck it. But growing up, he went by he, him, at least. And I think for Black men especially, to hear a compliment in that way, there's something so sensual. It's not even saying like, oh, he's so handsome, but it's like, no, you got pretty feet. Like, that's a very sensuous kindness to receive. And that's, I think, also why it says, I probably fell a little bit in love with her that day, with the weird white streak in her hair and her machine gun chatter, laughter, and her throwing back the Fritos in her mouth. And he did, because all those little things he noticed. I think also to do with this learning about how we think is learning about how we notice what we notice. Like, you probably would have noticed 3 other different things about Tina, What else? From whom else? Thank you so much. How do I say? Do I say Malika or Michaela?
It's Malika.
Malika. I'm just
Malika.
wrong.
No, you're
Pleasure.
fine.
Okay.
I guess one thing that I thought is interesting kind of in the way that the 2 poems function is that they are both kind of written in their own structural language. And I think internalism as a concept, like in your writing, is tough because it's in your own language, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to translate it before you can even write it down. So there's this wall. Mm-hmm. And I think that the tulips and the kindness about his feet both have a different denotation in the language that they each live in. Mm-hmm. So these things that I think objectively they as people know are small and are light, like smash through the wall in their language and just mean so much more. And that's, yeah.
Smash through the wall. Yeah, it feels almost like invasive. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a good thing, because now that Ross cares about Tina, even though he's not very close to Tina, when he hears that she dies, he wants to make meaning of her unremarkable kindness.
I think Ross
I mean? So it's like once you matter to the poet, mm-hmm. you matter because it's like they came in your life, they made a whole thing, and then they left. What were you gonna say?
No, I think. Oh, sorry. I think that person already meant something to Ross, right? And
yeah,
I don't know. That was just very interesting to me. I kind of just lost my other thought, but
it's okay. You had something happening to you.
Yeah, it's all good.
It'll come back. Yeah, you live in a lively home. It's good. It's a good thing. What else is Ross talking about? Oh no, he went away. It happens to the best of us.
Sorry.
I think I'm sorry.
What's up, Boo?
Okay. Were you talking? Okay. I think what I was kind of caught up in reading this poem and still caught up in was less about like what he's talking about and like who he might be talking to. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of this story and how he was talking about like why else, like, do you think this is about the feet? It's obviously not about the feet. And like when someone dies, the ritual of bringing like pieces of them to like a certain kind of gathering. Mm-hmm. And like even like memories that are small and insignificant, like would Tina have even remembered this happening? Like maybe not, but like pieces that you kind of get from people, and then like once they're ultimately not here in a physical form anyway, like how you come together with all of those pieces. And that's part of like the healing is like, hey, I got to give this back now, or at least give it to other people. I don't know if any of what I said makes sense, but I feel like in this poem, I get a very strong sense of like who he's talking to.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Who do you think he's talking to? You specifically, bro.
Me specifically?
Yeah.
It feels like a eulogy for an acquaintance. I almost imagine him on a podium talking to other people who knew her, half knew her, mm-hmm. or ended up in the room where she's being remembered or celebrated or.
Yeah. What else? That's a good question, actually. What else? Thank you, Royal. What else do we think? Who else do we think Roske is talking to? Because I'll actually jump in very quickly and say I feel like he's talking to the poet. I love when the poet says, "I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that." Right? Who else do we think he's talking to? Hi, Leah. Is that how I say your name? You're coming in a little late, but we're happy to have you.
Yeah, hi.
We're talking right now about Ross Gay's poem Feet. You can find it in the... No, it's okay. You can find the poem we're discussing in the group chat. Right now we're talking about feet. We were originally talking about tulips, and yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll look at it right now.
Sounds good. I would ask you your alter ego name, but I don't know if we have enough time, actually. So just a couple more things, and then we will have to move on from feet. So who do you think he's talking to? But also, why? So he didn't know old girl. So why does it matter to him? In terms of Sylvia Plath, presumably who gave her the flowers was someone who knew her well enough to visit her in the mental hospital. So, but why this elegy for Tina? And why isn't it called Elegy for Tina? Why is it called Feet if it's not about his feet? Yes.
So the thing I was thinking about, there's feet, and then the main focal point that I center myself to is the little factory in his mind, right? But then what echoes so loudly for me is the line, but mostly I wish I could tell you of the footsteps I hear. And like connection between feet and the footsteps and the footsteps in the factory. And I feel like that makes me think he's talking to anybody outside of this factory, because he's the only one witnessed it inside, and he's the only one who can like hear these footsteps and then they vanish, and hear these footsteps and then they vanish. And I feel like that's like him like extending out of like this factory, this field behind his eyes. And yeah, that's what my thought ends.
That's incredible. I've never heard a reading like that of this poem, ever. And I've read this poem since the book came out and before. That's incredible. Thank you. Because I never connected the feet to the footsteps he hears, but mostly I could tell you the footsteps I hear more than I can ever count if you listen closely until we arrive again here, right? There's like a cliff where he can no longer hear it. And so often I think this poem is really about loneliness in so many ways because of that little factory in his head. Let's talk a little more about the little factory in our heads before we move forward, and then y'all gonna have to talk about it. What does he mean by that? And thank you, Sanam. Thank you. It's awesome. What is a little factory in your head? Yeah.
I think it's just all the different thoughts and experiences and emotions that we all move through the world with, how we perceive ourselves, how others perceive us, and just inside the factory is some sort of cohesive attempt in like shaping little things along the way. Like I imagine a little, what is that thing called? The conveyor belt, you know, like each thing is coming out, and they're coming out in different shapes and sizes and forms, and yeah, and like a lot of that won't ever be expressed. Other people won't necessarily hear it or get it. So I think all of us are just walking around with all of these things. And what I think is so powerful about this poem and about Sylvia Plath's poem is to see all of that kind of unfold in a very vulnerable and raw way. Because even like with the tulips, yeah, I'm sure I've had moments too where I'm like, you know, kind of salty about someone offering something that seems like a platitude or whatever, but just to see it kind of unfold that way is really interesting. So yeah, we're all walking around with all of that.
Excellent. Thank you, Ami. That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I definitely agree. I also think like a lot of it ties back to like the question you asked earlier about why didn't he name it like an elegy for Tina? And I think a lot of that is because like this poem really isn't about, at least to me, this poem really wasn't about Tina. It was about trying to express like all the things that her death made him want you to feel. Like it to me felt like we weren't reading about Tina so much as we were reading about like the feelings that she inspired. And like I think that's what he means when he's talking about like how the poet's goal is to let you into the little factory in your head, is like to understand like not what's in your life, but like what you make out of the things in your life.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. We missed you, so this is good. Thank you. That's an excellent.
Yeah, sorry.
Girl, you don't have to apologize. I'm literally just being a ridiculous person. No, we're just happy to have you here. Yeah. I mean, it's right. And I thought it was very interesting how you said he's writing about the things he wants to make you feel, which I thought was very interesting, because they're also the things that he felt, but they are directed outward. Like, I want you to feel special the way I felt special when someone said, because I fucking hate feet. I don't care if anyone says anything nice about my feet, whatever. I think they're gross, and I think they're on the ground for a reason, and I'm happy because they're the hands for my legs, but I wouldn't want to trade them. But I'm not going to write no poem about my damn feet. I don't care. But I think for him, it was like someone noticed me. Someone noticed like the most tender part of me, and without knowing me at all, loved me, you know. So that's beautiful. We're going to move forward. So I asked y'all to watch an excellent work, you guys. This is like candy. I was so sleepy before. Now I'm like giddy. This is great. So I asked you guys to watch Canuck, the episode Canuck from season 1, episode 3 of Documentary Now. Oh, thank you, Zach. So yeah, if you feel that you didn't get to say your piece, please write it into the group chat, and maybe Royal can send the group chat around of thoughts and feelings we have around the poems, only because we only have about like 20 more minutes together or so, and I want to like really utilize the time. So I asked you guys to watch the Canuck episode 3 of season 1 of Documentary Now. Were we able to watch it prior to being here? Yeah? Okay, so because we're running low on time, and because it's such an absurd metascape, I watched it right before we met today. I'm just going to talk very briefly about why I had you do that. So I had you watch it because it's so like, that's the factory in someone's head, I think, described so perfectly. You have Fred Armisen and Bill Hader, like, let's make a show where we pay homage and do spoofs on documentaries that exist. And so then they get this documentary about Canuck, which is a real documentary made in the 20s by that dude. And then I think the real 80s recovery documentary is also real, of the Canuck Uncovered. And then they do a spoof on the Canuck Uncovered on the real documentary. So you have like these layers of thinking. And then, you know, you have within the adaptation, Canuck's point of view. And you get all these like, you know, breaking the fourth wall jokes about filming, right? The what did he call it? Third act problems and all this shit, right? It's very funny. But what you see that I think is actually very evocative is that Alagaki, the translator, was like, he called it his point of view. And he wanted people to see things the way he saw them. And so that's what I'm referring to when I refer to the little factory in your head. I'm referring to Canuck or Pipalock or whatever you want to call him, even that, right? Taking Sebastian St. Clair's idea of film and positioning it how he saw the world, right? He didn't see the world as like a flat set and him running across the thing. He saw the dogs, he saw himself, he saw his people walking in a line. And even though it's a spoof, it's actually very moving to me that those things are not a given. And I think as writers that we are, if we're here today on a Friday in the middle of the day or night, you know, you're a writer, just sorry, it's too late for you. You can't do anything else. Talking about these things, you inherently have a Canuck Pipalock situation of like, the world views me as Pipalock. I know myself to be Canuck. How can I show myself and my world Canuck as I see him? So that's what we're doing here, right? So, okay, now we're gonna get into some writing. Royal, instead of sharing out just because it's so much like patching in, patching out, I would really love to just give y'all the prompt, and then you guys write in the privacy and peace of your own homes. And if Royal, you could collect their email addresses if you don't have them already, and y'all could send them to me, I'd be more than happy to send back small notes and feedback. I just think it'll be a lot more beneficial. Yeah,
that sounds great.
Are we? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So here's the prompt. I'll also type up the prompt. I'll say it and then I'll type it up in the group chat. And then we'll close. And thank you guys so much. Let's just all like do a small dance for ourselves because we did the thing. Just a little tiny dance. Fine, I'm dancing, whatever. You guys are all probably dancing, but none of you are moving on my screen. It's fine. Prompt. What does the little factory in your head literally look like, smell like, sound like? What is it populated with, and by whom, and what things and or memories? So I'll type it up, so I'm just gonna like, oh yay, dancing, thank you, Amy, or Ami, sorry. So you would name 5 objects and or people that are in your head, 5 smells, 5 sounds, 5 times of day or night, 5 failures, and 5 triumphs. So for example, the little factory in my head is a card table of 5 different versions of myself. Most of them are wearing red dresses, maybe just one, and they're all playing poker. And there's a red carpet underneath them and no light because there's no times of day or night. And they all talking shit. And that's the little factory in my head. Most of them are smoking. Right, so I'm gonna type it up right now. And thank you all so much. If there's anything anyone would like to say now, you know, like popcorn it, but that's our workshop for today. And I'm so thankful to meet y'all. And please do write up and send them to me. The last like remaining 20 to 30 minutes, instead of using it to like kind of half write and half say the thing, I really would rather you guys just like write the thing that your conversation and factories, little factories are worthy of. So yeah, go ahead and speak if you would like to. Aww.
Yeah, if anyone has any quick questions for Aziza or like wants to circle back to like a final comment or a poem or like anything like that, like please just jump in.
I was kind of wondering about Ross's toes and also like the two, because he does like put a lot of focus on his toes and says how they're happy when he like takes them out and they can finally see the sun and they're like sprouting like flowers. And then Sylvia, I was wondering if maybe she like liked tulips in the past, but I was just kind of like wondering if anyone like had any or thought of anything about the like toes, because I know that Sanam, I believe, if I'm not butchering your name, you mentioned like toes in the factory. Want to know like what the like toes meant, since they were really happy and they were like personified to some degree. Like if anyone had anything about that, because I'm not sure what I think. But
good question. Feel free to jump in. I'm not going to because I just taught a class, so y'all feel free to jump in.
And it's also fine if no one has anything to say. I just wanted to know if like anyone could like maybe like direct.
No, I mean it's a beautiful question, and like what I would like is if no one jumps in, which I do think someone should, but no pressure. Just email it to me and we can keep in correspondence about it. Yeah? I think that's a fair trade. But go ahead, yes.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it is just like another really specific theme, because he opens the poem with the body's common wreckage stuck into boots. And I've read Ross Gay's work, and I feel like there's something about like appendages. There's one line in one of his poems where he says something about his fingers, which will close his mother's eyes for the last time. So there's like very kind of intimate details that I think are expressed in our bodies and in some places in our bodies that maybe we have feelings about, like feet are gross, or like fingers are only used for like typing or cooking food or things like that. So I think there's ways in which he's breaking from that, and just fits with the very small detail. It's kind of what we've been talking about in the last hour, about how the small details really make things very miraculous.
Very cool. Okay. Any last questions, thoughts, feelings, riots?
Okay, so
No riots. Oh.
This isn't like an interesting question, but
well then,
But what email are we sending the poems to? Is it yours, Aziza, or is it?
You're gonna send it to Royal. Excellent question. Not boring at all. You're gonna send it to Royal at Winter Tangerine, and she's gonna forward them to me.
I'm gonna put my email down in the group chat, but also feel free to reach out to me over the numerous groups and chats that we have for the seminar.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
All right, family. Well, I can't wait to read your poems. I would like to close actually with a line from one of my favorite stories, The Velveteen Rabbit. I'm going to read the part of it that I like, that I think is important. Let me just scroll down to it. Just a moment. All right. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day, when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off and your eyes drop out and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." All right, I'm gonna add that to the chat, and with that, I look forward to reading. Have a good day, y'all.
Wow, again, thanks so much. And
Thank
I'll send those along. Excited.
Excellent.
Thanks for the dance jazz session and the music recs. Did you want to give those again?
I'll email them.
Okay,
and
cool.
good to see you, Noor. Now we get to be friends. It's great. Cool. So, bye, y'all.